Welcome to today's profit and growth benchmarks. This is the final installment of BenchPress 2023. And for those of you not familiar with BenchPress, it is the largest survey of UK independent agencies. It is the only survey you need to complete each year in January. And by taking part, we're able to share some incredible benchmarks and stats with you, but not just statistics and data. It's the opportunities that this gives you and the insights that we share that is the reason you're all here today. And thanks so much for joining us. Now, we have so many insights from BenchPress that we actually have to share them over 3 reports. And we've already shared the State of the Agency Nation report earlier this year that looked at the key financial benchmarks and trends and priorities and how agency owners spend their time. We then looked at pricing, specifically hourly rates, levels of discounting, all the different ways agencies price their work and how you manage price increases and scope creep. And today we'll be looking at profit and growth and the levers you can pull in each of those areas. So as with all of the benchmarks, we're able to split the data into agencies over $1 million and under $1 million and produce 2 separate reports for each. And in terms of the plan for today, I will be sharing data on growth rates plus the key profit metrics. But as always, I want to leave you with an opportunity to change things, an opportunity to raise your game. And we'll be looking at 6 very specific action areas based on the data, based on the insights that we've discovered. And these are levers that you can pull to take things to the next level. And I will be whistling through some of these stats, and indeed there are plenty more stats in the report. So if you miss anything or you want more detail, the reports and the recording will be emailed to you later today. So as we go through, I'm sure you'll have questions, and I'll be joined after this presentation by Rory, Spence, who helped me put together these reports, and we'll be answering all of your questions. If you use the Q&A facility for those questions, anything you want to share or chat about, use the chat, but any questions, go to Q&A. It'll be easy for Rory and I to answer them all at the end. So one of the questions I often get asked is, what does fast growth look like? And I can be really clear about that because we have data on it. And we asked the question, what happened to fee income last year? And there was a range of responses. 10% really struggled, saw income reduced. 11% said it stayed about the same. But the really encouraging sign was that we had 79% of agencies actually say that fee income grew last year. That's 4 out of 5. And in terms of what high performance looks like, in terms of fast growth, it's this category here. Any agency that's able to grow by 26% consistently year on year is undoubtedly high performing. And the key to growth isn't just growth for growth's sake. Look, there are lots of benefits of growth. We all know what they are. It creates opportunities for your team, creates opportunities to build capability, to advance to the next level. But really what we're looking for is profitable growth. We all know that. That's why we're here. It's profitable growth. But one stage further than that, I'd encourage you all to think about how you can bring about consistent profitable growth, because we all know agencies, and maybe if you've been in business a little while, you're one of them that will recognize the phrase which goes, we would have had such a good year if it wasn't for that one job or that one project or that one client, that one that slipped away, the one that drained all our profit away from us. And I want us all to eliminate those one jobs, one clients, those moments where, if we'd have just won that pitch, we would have had a really profitable year. I want you to help build a business model, build the habits, build the culture that bring about consistent profitable growth. And these insights I shared today will help you do that. First up, I'm going to share some profit benchmarks. We're going to look at the gross profit and operating profit to aim for, and some of the things that you can do to move the odds more in your favor. So when it comes to operating profit, again, we split this out for agencies above and below $1 million. These stats are for £1 million plus agencies first up. There's a definition that we use for operating profit in our survey, which is after you've paid yourself. So in your accounts, your operating profit will be shown before you take dividends. And these figures that I'm going to share with you on the screen show the operating profit as a percentage of fee income after you've paid these dividends. And the reason we do that is because I wanted to create a level playing field. So if you're an agency making £200,000 profit, that's a really good level of profit if you're the sole director. It's not quite so good if you've got to share that profit amongst four owners. So I wanted to create a level playing field and for us all to see what operating profit looked like once we paid ourselves, once we paid those dividends. So 8% are not making any profit at all. And clearly these agencies are at risk. You're below average if you have an operating profit between 1 to 10%. And you're around about average if you're between 11 to 20. And this is where we all need to aim for, above 20%. So 18% are in a good bracket, 21 to 30. And then we have the top performing agencies, 11% sit above 31% operating profit. And we sat there thinking, crikey, how on earth do you get there? Well, 11% are managing it. And when you look at agencies under 1 million, 10% of agencies under 1 million are managing it as well. The numbers are similar. They're slightly different. I'll come on to the differences between agencies over and under 1 million in a second. So the operating profit we all need to aim for here is 20%. That is the point we need to focus on and really work hard and not accept anything less than that. I see too many agencies get used to, those years that I talked about earlier where, you end up with single digit operating profit, but you put it down to something. You have an excuse for it, a perfectly valid excuse, that one client, that one job. What I see is, and the danger is that becomes the habit, that becomes the norm. You start to accept and normalize operating profit in the single figures, and that's not the place you need to be. Let's start normalizing an operating profit of 20%. That's where we need to aim for. That is the level of profit that will give you reserves and comfort and will give you the ability, a platform to invest in your future. So that's what we need to aim for. When we look at the averages, they're below that 20%. So agencies above 1 million is 17%. And for agencies under 1 million, it's 14%. Now, if you're sat there looking at that 14% figure thinking, that's a bit odd. Why are agencies under 1 million why do they have a lower operating profit than agencies above 1 million? Well, you're right to think that it's odd, because that is the first time it has happened since we started measuring this stat in 2012. So in over a decade, agencies are above 1 million have traditionally an average operating profit below those smaller agencies, for good reason, because of all the additional overheads that they have to carry that the smaller agencies don't, things like office space, and HR costs and admin costs and IT costs that the smaller agencies simply don't need to incur. Now, the playing field has been leveled slightly. Now, their requirement for office space, whilst most do have offices, their teams are not in quite so readily as they were before, and therefore the cost as a percentage of their revenue has been reduced. But the biggest reason for this switch is due to a fall in gross profit, and particularly for the smaller agencies. So let's have a look at that. So the first thing I'll say about gross profit is your most important metric. Now, as an accountancy practice, while there are lots of metrics that we encourage you to measure, but the one we look at first, the one that is the best indicator of the health of your agency, is your gross profit margin, because profit is the precursor to cash. Don't look at cash in the bank, look at your profitability. That's going to tell you how much cash in the bank you're going to have further down the line. And it's really important that you calculate it in a meaningful way. And I've been talking about this for a long time. I make no apology for repeating this message, but it's really important that you calculate it in this particular way. It's detailed in the report. I'm not going to go into the details now, but I just want to make sure that you're clear on this one line here, that your chargeable wages are not an overhead of your business. They are above the line as a cost of sale. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do that. You could get 100 accountants in the room and 50 would argue one way and 50 would argue with the other way. And they're both right. Technically, it doesn't really matter where you put it. But what I'm talking about here is not what's technically correct, it's what's meaningful. And by putting it above the line as a cost of sale, you can truly assess your level of profitability and compare it to others across the board. And it's also important when you're doing that, I'm sure you're including your freelancer costs in there, but also include your director's market rate. So the time that you spend as the business owner on client work, it's important that you factor that into the equation, and don't cheat the figures by not including yourself in there or any of the directors that spend time on client work. So that's the equation. And when it comes to the stats that come out of that equation, well, for £1 million plus agencies, gross profit has fallen from 44% last year in 2021 to 40% in 2022. And for the smaller agencies under 1 million, it dropped from 44% down to 36%. So that is a significant fall. And that is the reason why operating profit for smaller agencies is as low as it's ever been. And for the first time ever is below that of the larger agencies. So there's work to do for all of us, really. You know, that fall in operating profit, whilst it's significant for the smaller agencies, it's also significant for the larger agencies too, because both of those averages are well below where you need to aim for. The place you need to aim for a gross profit margin is 50%. Now, I remember doing a presentation on this, and someone in the audience sort of winced or sort of took in some air and said, gosh, you know, that's hard to do. Yeah, it is hard to do. I know how hard it is to do, because I run a service business too. At the WOW company, we have a team of 50, and we've been also tracking our most important metric. And for many years, we were below the 50% rate, and we've worked hard to get it above there. I know how hard it is, but I know that it's worth it. And actually, what we've noticed is there's a correlation between profitability and the service that we provide. Now at the above 50% profit margin, we're delivering the best service we ever have. We're adding more value than we ever had before. This isn't about cutting corners. This is about delivering more value, adding more impact, and I encourage you to go on that journey. Now, on that journey, the details really matter. They really matter. And the first action I have for you today is to measure your profit in more detail than ever before. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Because when I talk about measuring things in detail, I want to encourage you to measure your gross profit by project. I want to encourage you to measure your gross profit by client and by service offering. These are the details that matter, because if you don't do that, then you won't know where you are making money and where you are losing money. And that is what we need to be clear about, because once you see these stats, you cannot unsee them, and you'll be compelled to take action. So where do you measure the profitability in detail? I'm sure if I walked into your business tomorrow and said, can I have a league table of clients, please, by value, at the amount that they spend with you per year, I'm sure you could produce that at a click of a button. But if I asked you for the same report by profitability, would you be able to produce that at a click of a button? If I asked you by project, by the live projects that you have available, show me the profitability on them as a live status, could you do that at the click of a button? Same for your service offering. There are lots of agencies that can. Now, I want to share a little story with you that illustrates the value of this. It was someone just before they became a client. I remember chatting to them, and there were two parts of their business. There was a traditional web build, and then they had a data analytics part of the business. The traditional web build, well, it's more not web build actually, it was more digital services. Digital services was $750,000, and then they had sort of a data analytics element of it, which was $250,000. So about £1 million agency. And when we were chatting to them about their business, they talked about the $750,000 and saying, look, that's keeping the lights on in our business. Thank goodness for that $750,000. We want to grow the data side, but whilst we're doing that, goodness, I'm really grateful for this $750,000. It's keeping the lights on. Anyway, they became a client. First thing we did was encourage them to measure gross profit by service offering, and we looked at that $750,000. And we looked at the cost associated with delivering that. Likewise for the $250,000, the data analytics. And then we presented the numbers back to them. And they were astonished, because the £750,000 worth of digital services was losing money every month. Losing money. They were losing about $5,000 a month delivering that $750,000. Whereas the data side, they were making $10,000 a month. They were making $5,000 a month, so they were breaking even. So that was pretty good margin on the data side, whereas the digital services was losing money. So when presented with those facts, we were saying, well, it's quite clear, isn't it? The digital side of the business isn't keeping the lights on; it's slowly dimming them. It's ever so slowly dimming them, and you didn't even realize it. And my challenge to you is, what is slowly dimming the lights in your agency right now? Which client, which service offering, which project is slowly dimming the lights and you don't even know that it's happening? Let's change that. Let's go into more detail, because when we look at those measuring gross profit in detail, looked at the £1 million plus agencies, 61% are measuring it by project. That means there's a big chunk that aren't. And if you're one of the 39% that aren't, I'd encourage you to do that right now. Less than half are measuring it by client. So you don't know which clients are profitable and which clients are dimming the lights in your agency. Less than a third are measuring it by service offering. Again, the same challenge to you. Which of your services are currently dimming the lights, and which ones are you making the money on? And then when it comes to individual team members, this is very hard to do and requires a lot of detail, but 1 in 10 £1 million plus agencies are even measuring their gross profit by individual team member. That gives them very powerful data that they can take action on. Again, once you see these stats, you can't unsee them. Finally, we've got, and I find this shocking, 1 in 5 not measuring any of the above. If that's you, you're missing a trick. Clearly, you're missing a trick. You're flying blind. For the smaller agencies, well, they're not quite as advanced when they come to this. When you look at those stats, you'll see few of them are measuring these things in detail. This is a journey. I accept that. But hey, a message to the smaller agencies: you can accelerate that journey by measuring these things in detail and build the habits that you're going to be very grateful for as the numbers get bigger. So there's always a good time to start, and that time to start is now. Now, there are 6 components of profit within an agency. We've studied this, we've written a lot about this. I've spent 20 years at WOW working with agencies, and I've seen accounts in all of these businesses, and I know what it takes to make money, and I know certainly what it takes to lose money. And when you look at these 6 components, right, from planning and pricing through to how do you manage projects and retainers, reporting, how to generate profit from your existing clients, and then the holy grail, sustaining this all in a profit culture. So when your back is turned, you still make money. These are the 6 components. And what I'd say about these 6 components is, do not leave them to chance. Do not leave profit to chance. It's really important that you do this. Second action area, that you have a profit plan that looks in detail at all of those 6 areas and helps you be conscious about the things that you need to do to improve on in each of those areas. This will not happen by chance. It's important that you create a plan. And to help you do that, we've created an agency profit program. Now, this is specifically for agencies between 1 and 3 million turnover. And the reason why we use that grouping is because agencies above and below that have very, very different requirements. This is a profit program we've run every 2 years, pretty much for the last decade. And when we've opened it up to a larger field, we've learned that actually there's different requirements. So this particular profit program, this cycle, is for agencies between 1 and 3 million. And we will take you through all of these areas and guide you in terms of all of the nuances and the shortcuts that you will need to take in order to excel in all of these 6 areas. We're covering it off in 5 online workshops. There's an exclusive Slack group. And the beauty about bringing similar sized agencies together is that you get to learn from your peers. And not only do you get to learn from your peers, we're bringing in some experts as well, people who've been there, seen it and done it, and can share their experiences with you. So if you're interested, if you're in that 1 to 3 million group, go to wowco.uk/profit. Rory will share a link in the chat now. And as I say, we run this every 2 years. The tickets always sell out. We limit the cohort to create the perfect experience for everyone. And I don't think we've ever gone beyond the early bird ticket price. So they just sell out. So if you want to be part of that, you've got the first shot at it today. You're the first people to hear about it. So one of those areas that we'll be talking about on the program is managing projects and retainers. And actually this area is the area where profitability just leaks out of agencies ever so quietly. And if you think about it, that's not surprising, because you can do the great planning and pricing, but right now in your businesses, our teams are working away on projects, and we hope they're working away on them efficiently. But the reality is, this is where the profitability leaks out. And one particular stat I thought would be interesting to share today is utilization rates. So utilization rate is the percentage of time that any individual or group of individuals, a team, spend working on chargeable client work. So this percentage of time that they spend working on chargeable client work. So in theory, someone could spend 100% of their time working on chargeable client work. The reality is that's really hard to do, and we're not robots, and it would be, I would say, unusual, if not impossible, certainly to sustain 100%. You simply can't do it. But let's look at what agencies are sustaining and what the averages are. So some agencies look at this per job role, and I've got those stats, and some look at it across the whole business. So for those that look at it across the whole business, the average utilization rate is 65%. So pretty much 2/3 of people's time are spent on chargeable client work. Then the other roles, those who look at it by role, these are the results. So you'll see there that they would expect the average for juniors is 75%. By the way, that's average. That means some people have lower stats than that. Some people have higher stats than that. Mid-level people, 74%. Seniors drops to 63%. And that's to be expected as the more senior people take on more management functions, maybe start to get involved more in pitch scenarios, some non-chargeable work. And directors are at 33%. And again, you would expect directors to be lower because there's lots of other stuff we need to do as directors of the business. And the area I'd like you to focus on is this final column, directors, because what we discovered when we looked at the data was the agencies where directors did less client work saw more profit and growth. Isn't that interesting? The agencies where directors did less client work saw more profit and growth. And that didn't surprise me in many ways, and it shouldn't surprise you, because we know intuitively that the more time that we spend working on our businesses, the better results we're going to get. Over 80% of us in the survey that we did this year said we wanted to spend more time on strategy, more time working on our businesses. And the biggest blocker to that is the time that we spend on client work. And that might not be chargeable time, by the way. That might be this informal sort of project management or overseeing or account management relationships that often we end up retaining, even if we've actually passed on the client work. But that just gently draws down on our time and prevents us from building a business and focusing on profitability and putting those plans in place. So that was a really interesting stat. So the third action I'd encourage you all to take is to review how you spend your time and to be conscious about it. One of the exercises we've done in a previous session was look at the 4 areas where you could spend your time: the here and now, there was a matrix which I can't remember the names of the boxes, but building capability was one, and certainly working on your business. That was it: business admin, here and now, building capability, and then working on your business. And just to getting people to spend over a 2-week period to actually log how they spend their time and to be conscious about where you're spending in each of those 4 boxes. And then to think, well, okay, where do I want to spend my time? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? What do I need to outsource? Where can I build that capability within the team? So an action for all of us here today is to review how we spend our time. It's going to be a key determinant of our profitability and our long-term future success. Remember, we're building consistent, profitable growth here. And to build consistent, profitable growth, we need to look at the building blocks of that consistent, profitable growth and need the time and headspace to do it. So action 3, do that, spend the next 2 weeks just logging your time and seeing what it looks like, and then just being conscious about how you want to shift it over the next remaining months of the year. We also looked, when it comes to project management, at the technology that we all use to manage our projects. This is, again, a critical tool to help us with our profitability. And there's a journey that we all go on as agencies, from using no technology at the start to spreadsheets, to then separate apps, and eventually a single system. Well, we'll all end up using a single system once you get big enough, and there I'll explain the reasons for that. Now, you can see that journey as people migrate from, I mean, crikey, who are the 1% on no tech? I don't know what they're doing, how they're surviving, but they're literally managing projects with no tech. 11% on spreadsheets, 44% of separate apps, and then 44% of the single system. So just the difference between the separate apps and the single system, I just want to dwell on that, because look, it's obvious. If you've got lots of spreadsheets, then that is a sure sign that there is unnecessary complexity building within your business. The thing about spreadsheets is they never get retired. You just seem to add new ones and add new ones and add new ones and new tabs, and they seem to grow. And even with the separate apps, there's some brilliant apps out there that do sort of join up. But what you will find is you'll get to a point where you'll need some information, and getting that information requires a great deal of I don't know, sticky tape and spreadsheets and faffing around with data. And eventually that will get too much. So, you know, if you've got a timesheeting app and a project management app and an internal comms app to manage the chatter around the projects, eventually you'll say, do you know what, let's have all of this in one place, and you'll move to a single system. And there's some brilliant single systems out there. In the report, you'll see all of the apps that the agencies are using, both agencies under 1 million and over 1 million. And you'll be able to make your own assessment as to which one's right for you. But certainly just have a think. If you do have spreadsheets, maybe it's time to upgrade. And if you wanted some encouragement, what we discovered was those that have moved away from spreadsheets have higher non-director utilization rates. They make more profit, and they feel less anxious because they've got more information at their fingertips. They're able to hit a button and see how they're performing and look at those 3 types of indicators that I've talked about before. That's the other thing about the technology that we have. It's really important that we cover both our retrospective indicators, our real-time indicators, and also our predictive indicators. So looking at those 3 indicators, the retrospective ones tells you what has happened, the real-time ones tell you what is happening, and the predictive ones tell you what is going to happen in the future. And it's important that the technology we have allows us to hit a button, get those data points, and that makes us, I don't know, certainly for me in my time in business, just feel a lot less anxious. I know where I am, what's coming next. I feel way more in control. And that's the feeling that great technology gives you, which is why the 4th action is for you to just upgrade your tech. Wherever you're at now, just have a think about how you can take things to the next level. Certainly when it comes to reporting, how you can beef up the reporting element of what you do. There's some brilliant solutions out there that encourage you to look at them. Now, we're talking here today about profit and growth. And what I thought would be useful to do is just look at the levers that you can pull to increase your growth. Now, for a long time, I've been an advocate of having a written growth plan. So I was curious as to how many agencies had them. For the £1 million plus ones, 7% said they didn't. Around about half, 45% said, well, kind of. They have objectives, but no detailed growth plan. And then I'm really pleased to see that 48% have a clear written plan for how to grow your business. Good for you. Now, for the smaller agencies, not quite so well planned. 22% don't have a plan at all. 54% kind of do, and only a quarter, just less than a quarter, have a clear written plan. Now, wherever you sit on those answers, I'm going to give you some encouragement around the benefits of planning. And the first benefit that we noticed, those that had a clear written growth plan had increased confidence. The agency owners with a plan were more positive. Their confidence ratings, so remember that number we did right at the start, was 68 versus 62 versus those that didn't have a plan. They also grew faster. They were much more likely to achieve high growth, that increase in fee income of 26% plus we talked about at the start if they had a written plan. And they just had a better balance. So they were twice as likely to report they had a healthy work-life balance if they had a written plan, which I thought was really interesting. So the benefits of planning are obvious. They're there in the data. We know it intuitively anyway. I'd encourage you to work on your growth plans for your business. Now, one of the components of that growth plan will be your value proposition, the statement and the stories around it that showcase specifically how you will add value to the very specific group of clients that you want to target. Now, I was really curious to see how clearly differentiated everyone's thought their agency proposition, value proposition was, because, you know, this was a subjective question, and I appreciate you marking your own homework here, but let's have a look at what agencies thought. So 13% admitted, look, we do similar things to other agencies. We're not different at all. 35% said, well, look, we're some way on this journey. At least we know what we're good at. 33% said, yeah, do you know what? We started to specialize. But only 1 in 5, 19% said, look, we have a clear specialism or niche. And again, in terms of encouragement, clear differentiation leads to fast growth. You're 3 times more likely to achieve fast growth if you have a clear specialism or niche. That's pretty powerful stat. 3 times more likely to achieve fast growth if you have a clear specialism or niche. I've talked about this a lot, so is Rory, and there's a brilliant case study that you can link to in the report that takes you through what a clear specialism or niche looks like. So I'd encourage you to click that when you get the report. So action 5, is just to take your differentiation up a level. Wherever you are on that continuum, there is the next level. In fact, there's always the next level for all of this stuff. That's the beauty. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm just constantly excited about the prospect of what's next and the prospect of raising our game and taking things to the next level. And if you are too, I think this is a great place for you to focus on, is to think about how you can differentiate yourself further. You know, in a competitive marketplace, it's more important than ever that we stand out. You know, buyers are not out there looking for generic agencies that can do a little bit of everything. They're looking for very specific agencies to solve very specific problems. Those agencies can charge more for what they do. They will make more profit. They will grow faster. I'd encourage you to go on that journey. And that journey that we're all on is to be the best in the world. I've talked about this a lot. My challenge to you is, how can you take that next step to being the best in the world at what you do? If you become the best in the world at something, you can charge what you want. So let's look at some of the growth strategies. Now, previously, we asked a very simple question, which is, what are the top ways that you pick up clients? And we produced a league table of it. And at number 3 was referrals from agencies and freelancers. Now, I'm going to take you through all of the top 3 ways that agencies pick up clients. And in each case, we asked a follow-up question this year, because I was curious as to how well everyone was doing each of the top 3 ways. So first up, in 3rd position, referrals from other agencies and freelancers. So the follow-up question to that was pretty obvious, really, was, well, are you a member of a community that connects you to other agencies so you can get these referrals? Well, I'm really pleased to say that 2/3 said, yes, we are. But that means that there's just over 1/3 there that aren't a member of a community. And if you're not a member of the community, you're missing out. Not only are you missing out on opportunities to connect with other agencies for the purposes of partnering and generating opportunities, but you're missing out on the friendships, the learning experiences that you get when you're part of a community. And there's none better than the Agency Collective to give you those learning experiences, those connections, those partnership opportunities. If you're not a member of the Agency Collective, then go and Google it right now. Book a chat with one of the team. It will make a big, big difference, as it has for all of the members that have been part of the Agency Collective for the last decade. I spoke to one yesterday who was very proudly reminded me that he was there at the very first event in July 2013 in Kettner's. And if you were one of those there too, and are still a member, yeah, 10 years on, that community now has 300 members, and the opportunities and the camaraderie that is shared is like no other. So please do check it out. Now, the second way that, or best way that agencies pick up clients is through networking. So I was curious, particularly after COVID, where do people network right now? Well, 54% said they mostly do it online, but we got 27% saying mostly face-to-face. 9 don't do any networking at all. Then we've got, again, 9% online, and only 1% are doing it face-to-face. So if you take, so those who do networking, pretty much all of it takes place, or some of it, a portion of it will take place online. And what I thought it'd be useful to do was look at sort of 6 tips to networking success, because whether it takes place online or face-to-face, the rules are still the same. And what I see is agencies not being clear enough as to their intentions here. So there are 6 tips for networking success covered off in the report. We don't have time to go through them today, but again, when that report comes through, keep an eye out for them, and it will guide you through what you need to do to help you get more from your networking. Now, the number 1 way that agencies pick up new business is referrals from existing clients. And the obvious follow-up question to this was, well, have you implemented a client referral strategy? And I'm really pleased that at least some have implemented it. 8% have implemented it, but that's not enough, because we have here 21% have partially implemented it, 16% said it lost momentum, and 55 have not done this yet. And I want to share you a little story. So I've been talking about this for a little while, and the benefits of it. And we all know intuitively, look, if picking up referrals from existing clients is our number 1 way of winning work, then I guess what would happen if we were conscious about it and took some actions in this area? And I was chatting to an agency owner a year or so ago, and he said, look, I just don't know where to start with this. I just don't know where to start. And where we landed was in the process for them. So when they pick up clients within that business, the first part of that process is to say, look, the way we grow our business is through referrals. So assuming we do a good job for you, would it be okay if after the first 3 months, we ask you for some referrals? Now, those referrals might be connections to other part of the business that you're working in, or to places that you worked previously. Assuming we do a good job, would it be okay if we asked you for referrals? That's how we grow. Of course, they would say yes to that. That seems a perfectly reasonable trade-off. They then work really hard in that first 3 months to deliver disproportionate value. And in that 3-month review session, they ask that question. Hey, look, we'd love to work with more people like you. Remember at the start, we asked you that question. Well, who else could you connect us to? What other areas of the business might make use of our services? Where have you worked previously? What other similar businesses could you connect us to? And they go through the filing cabinet in that person's head, metaphorically, to help uncover some opportunities for them. And they don't just leave it there. As part of their process, they make sure that every quarterly review, they continue to ask that question. And that was the turning point for them. That shifted them from not knowing where to start for this to just, okay, well, that's simple. Yeah, we can ask those questions. We can build it into the process. It's just an agenda item. It's just an agenda item. We don't need to think about it too hard. And that was their journey. Now, we've actually got 4 steps to increasing referrals. Again, a lot of detail. These are covered in the report. I'm not going to go through them now. I just wanted to let you know they are there. And I'd encourage you to go on those 4 steps. It will make a big difference. So action area number 6 is to do more of what works for you, because that is what works for agencies as a whole, those top three ways. So referrals from agencies, networking, and referrals from clients. But they might not be the ways that works for you. So I'd encourage you to be clear, number 1, on what does work for you, and then to do more of it. Now, it might be one of those 3 ways, or it might be your content strategy. It might be the events that you run. It might be your PPC campaign, who knows? But whatever works for you, do more of it, and that will help you on your growth journey. Maybe it is the time, by the way, that you do, shift from being one of the 55% that have not implemented a client referral strategy to one of the 8% that fully have. You will reap the benefits of it. Now, the actions from today, before we move into question time, I just want to summarize the things that you all need to do to raise our game. So number 1, measure profit in detail. It's, please don't be that agency that thinks that they have a particular client or service that's keeping the lights on when in fact it is slowly dimming them. Hopefully that story resonated with you, and you can take the action you need to ensure you're in a better place by the end of the year. The second area to focus on is to create your profit plan. Think about those 6 components of profit and make sure you have a plan for each of them. It's also important that you review how you spend your time. In fact, how you spend your time is one of the biggest determinants of your future success. So spend it wisely and be conscious about it. I'd encourage you to do that 2-week exercise where you look at how much you're spending in each of those 4 areas that I mentioned. So the business admin, the here and now, building capability, and finally, the working on your business. And then be conscious about how you want to spend it, particularly with the client work that you do, which will often be the biggest blocker to spending time working on your business. It's always a good time to review your technology, and there's some great options in the report. You can see what other agencies are using. And just think, if you are one of those people that felt a little bit uncomfortable when I talked about the spreadsheets with the tabs, then maybe now's the time to upgrade to a single system. Finally, or penultimately, just to think about your differentiation. How can you take this up a level and continue your journey to be the best in the world? Finally, do more of what works for you. New business is hard to come by at the moment. It's a challenging environment out there, which is why it's important that you are clearly differentiated, but also that you're taking the necessary action every single day, every single week, every single month, that you're doing the things that make the difference to help you build your pipeline, because everything is so much easier when the clients are coming in. When you have that full pipeline, it breeds confidence. A lot of times when I speak to agency owners, because they are bogged down in client work, they're not spending enough time on new business. In fact, that's the biggest barrier to growth. When we've looked at this previously, is agency owners are not spending, or as a business, not spending enough time on new business. Do more of what works for you. See if you can fix that. Finally, if you're sat there thinking, well, I might need some help on the journey, then we are here to help. WOW is an accountancy practice that works with agencies with between 8 and 80 staff. And if you're sat there thinking, oh, my accountant doesn't talk to me about this sort of stuff, and if you'd like an accountant that does, then get in touch. We'd love to help you on your journey.